we're getting a neon nerf, but we already knew that we were getting a neon nerf, but now we have some details of what that neon nerf is, right? Or at least this little video here, it's 1 minute 21 seconds long, and it contains not just a neon nerf, but also a pretty significant change to kind of the overall game as well. We'll get into that, but let's start with the neon nerf first of all.
We're nerfing neon. First up, her slides. They're a bit too powerful right now. We want ability usage to feel intentional, but we found that neon having 2 slides allows her to engage in combat and have a get out of jail free card. We'll be removing the full accuracy buff during the slide. Now it'll be more similar to the accuracy you have when you're crouching and moving. We'll also be making the timing tighter on the ultimate, so that it's more important that you would have a plan for how you would use it. And also so that opponents have more counterplay opportunities to bait it out or wait it out. We're also increasing the ultimate cost to 8 points. We'll also be...
Okay, so let's pause it right there. Talk about neon before we get into the other stuff. So for this, the first change, obviously the big one that, to be honest, they could have been more implicit with this. I had to go and quickly check. Neon does not have 2 slides anymore. There's only 1 slide now for neon, and as they say, basically the problem was, you know, that neon with 2 slides meant that you could go in and potentially get out as well. I'll leave this one for a bit. Let's first go to removing the full accuracy buff, because this is the one that I think was obvious, right? This is the one that, you know, your granny could have predicted that this was going to happen to neon, because this to me was the main problem, right? Like, this is the thing that really led to a lot of frustration, right? People really didn't like it. I made a video about it a while back, and so now you're going to have similar accuracy instead of full accuracy to when you're crouching and moving. Now, there is something funny about this, I think, that, you know, if we think about the neon slide and people not liking it because it's frustrating to play against, well, in a sense, that's not gone, because if you think about it, if someone kills you when they do this, right, and they're crouching and moving, actually, you still will die sometimes, but now you just know that it was no skill involved whatsoever, and it's just random chance, which I think is even more annoying. We'll see how that plays out, but, you know, I do think that's funny. But I think, obviously, that change had to probably be coming. The ult change, I'll quickly talk about this as well, because I think that this one makes a lot of sense, right? The ult is good. So, like, you know, the ult was good, and I think increasing the cost of it is a good change. I think also changing, you know, how fast it goes down is also a good change, right? So as they say here, you know, you basically might have a better chance of waiting out, essentially. You know, people, again, they always talk about utility being intentional with the way that people use their utility, right? And this is just a way of shortening the time. It means you have to be more intentional, you have to be using it at the right time. So no problem with those changes. The neon only having 1 slide, I know a lot of people will be absolutely fine with and be celebrating. I'm less on board with neon only having 1 slide and 1 stun. I don't think that overall that is very good, because I think now you're just not going to play neon. I think that's dumb. I think that's not a good thing. I think that you could have done this and kept the neon 2 slides. You know, they're talking about, oh, we found that neon having 2 slides meant that you could go in and get out, you know, and you might have like 2 ways of using it. Well, good. Because now neon's not good enough. Like, why would you pick neon now? Raze is really good. Jet is pretty good. Yoru is really good. Neon is just worse than neon was when neon, no one picked neon. You only have 1 slide and 1 stun now. At least you had 2 stuns before. Now you just don't. What, you don't have either? I don't agree with this change. I really, really don't. I think they could have done the other changes and kept this in there, and it would have been fine. And you would have had a healthy 3-way kind of, you know, interesting duelist meta develop, and then, you know, sprinkle in some Phoenix, sprinkle in some Yoru. You know, could have been a good duelist meta. Instead, we are just absolutely tied to Raze and Jet. We are just absolute Raze and Jet pilled out of our minds, and that's it. What have you done? Let's move on to the other changes. Right here.
We'll also be taking a light quality of life pass at Vice, and some improvements to Razer Vine, as we feel like it hasn't quite been hitting the mark.
So Vice is going to get a buff on the Razer Vine front, and look, I think that that's good, right? Obviously, these abilities, you know, they're not amazing. I do actually think that they are slightly underrated at the highest level, but, you know, then they're not amazing. I'm not going to go crazy about it and say that there's some amazing ability. So I'm interested to see what exactly they do. Maybe it'll deal more damage, because they don't actually say exactly what they're changing it. Maybe it'll be more damage. One interesting thing would be that if it made a sound like a kind of cipher gauge, if you were just in it no matter where you were, that would be a fairly significant buff at a high level, you know, to basically use it as an information tool as well. So we'll see exactly what they do, but I'm pretty happy with that as well. But this last change, pretty significant.
We're scaling back the ping system to be used as a communication tool, which is what it was originally intended to be, rather than a tool for creating gameplay advantages, such as smoking yourself off and using the pings to spam the enemies. Starting this patch, pings you place on your map won't show up in world, and smokes will block pings from passing through them, like walls do. So for example, if the spike is smoked off and you try to ping it, the ping won't pass through the smoke. There's also new ping sounds, so you can differentiate between types of pings.
Right here.
We'll be adding a cheat to allow you to use pings the old way in custom games. This is to allow you to practice lineups, and you can expect that in a future patch.
Okay, so they're changing pings. Pretty significant change to pings there, right? So basically there's two kind of pings now. You can still ping in world, right? But they won't go through smokes, as we kind of saw there. Or you can ping on the minimap like they do here, but they don't show up on the world, right? So if you are planning around, right, if you're IGLing around, you basically need everyone to be looking at their map, right? Because that's the only place that those pings will come up. And someone has brought this up that, you know, the default map settings should probably change so that you can see the whole map, right? Because otherwise, they just won't see your pings, right? Your teammates just won't see your pings. So, yeah, that probably needs to change. But overall, I think this is a, you know, a fairly decent change, and one that makes sense. Now, the reason, of course, that they did this, and especially with the smoke one that as we see here as well, the reason that they have done this, of course, is to stop the spam post plants that have really become a problem, you know, across a variety of maps. You know, obviously Sunset was kind of famous for this, but I mean there are more. You know, if we go on to Valorant, there are more examples here of maps that, you know, you could argue were a problem. Obviously Sunset was kind of, you know, one of, if not the main one, but Abyss has maybe some problems where you can definitely do it, and that's been shown on there. Ascent was fine, Bind was mostly fine, but even on Bind, you know, there are some instances where, you know, you can spam, you know, from different positions, you know, to a spike, and I'm sure if you've played enough games, you will have been in those situations. You know, Haven is another map where definitely on B can be a problem. We've seen teams, you know, just group up and come out towards C. So, I mean, there was a lot, right? It wasn't just one map. Obviously, Icebox kind of known for it. You know, Pearl B, obviously a big problem as well. So it wasn't just a map problem. This was probably something they had to do really to try and fix this, because, you know, they're not going to change all of the maps, right? They're just not. It's probably just too much work to redesign all the maps so that it wasn't ever a problem. So this is the way they've gone about trying to fix it. Now, it's interesting. How does a ping work inside a smoke as well, right? I don't fully know. We'll have to see. I guess it doesn't go through the smoke. I don't really know. And this sound for the other kind of ping as well. That's a horrible noise. Whoever made that noise, make a new one. 'Cause that's horrible. Please, please make a different noise. I don't ever want to hear that. Oh my god, please change it. So yeah, overall, a pretty significant change there to pings as well. Probably one that was needed. Will it fix the post-plant spam meta? You know, that's the question you really have to ask. Will this actually fix it? Probably not.